So Reflections is a not-for-profit focused on reducing the impact of asbestos and bringing hope to those affected by it. And our vision, it sounds a bit ambiguous, but our vision is that all Australians have enough awareness that they are empowered to make the right decision when it comes to potential exposure to asbestos. So asbestos has some amazing qualities. The fibrous sheeting enabled the average Aussie to become architect and builder of his own home. In fact, my dad was a carpenter and he was exposed to asbestos completely unaware of the dangers through his work, but he also built our family home with fibro sheeting. I remember helping hold the sheets and play with the offcuts. Australia, as we know, is privileged to be rich in natural resources, and asbestos is one of them. It makes it readily available, cheap. Combined with products such as cement to bind it, it was used in over 3,000 products across industries. And with its fire-resistant properties, it was not only used across industries, but as things like snow on movie sets, asbestos insoles that were claimed to make your feet feel happy, toothpaste, cigarette filters. Malcolm has some more really interesting examples of these later. That was only in December 2003 that asbestos was banned in Australia, and before that, Australia was one of the highest users. Like I mentioned, it was in over 3,000 products. I've been in this space for quite a few years now, and I still couldn't tell you all the products that it's in. And even though it is banned, asbestos is still finding its way through the borders, unfortunately. We've seen it on the news recently again in building products. It's coming in toy cars, crayons, even a children's spy kit a few years ago. It was in the dusting powder, children's makeup. The list goes on. So what's the problem? It's an amazing product, right? Well, it's a carcinogen and it's left a deadly legacy. We mined it, we built with it, and now we're tearing it down, or it's breaking down due to weathering and age. Asbestos is the #1 occupational cause of cancer worldwide, and it's the only known cause of the deadly and incurable cancer, mesothelioma. So very briefly, I'm not going to spend too much time on the medical aspect, but our internal organs, such as the heart, lungs, stomach, and testes, have a film, a bit like cling wrap, called the mesothelium. So asbestos fibres are inhaled or ingested, and they act like an irritant into the mesothelium. Those that don't know the difference, asbestosis is a lung disease inside the actual lung, whereas mesothelioma is a terminal cancer in the lining of the lung. Generally, from the time of exposure, it can take anywhere between 15 and 50 years for the symptoms to appear. And Australia has the second highest incidence of mesothelioma in the world, and one of the highest rates of asbestos disease in the world. Western Australia has the highest recorded rates, lucky us. Over 4,000 Australians die every year from the effects of asbestos, and there's no known safe level of exposure. Just a couple of pictures here. Right across Australia, we've all seen and been impacted by so many natural disasters recently. We've had some incredibly sad bushfires over here up in Perth Hills, Cyclone Shiroja up north, which the whole of Kalbarri, which was primarily built of asbestos, was just annihilated. When people are faced with the damage to their property or the shock and loss of their homes, I don't think that's the time to add the risk of asbestos to the equation. I believe if we had more general community awareness, it may change the way people think and respond in these crisis situations. As a building designer, I'm often on sites where asbestos materials are present, and it's disappointing time and time again to hear people's either lack of understanding or, worse still, their complacency around asbestos and the remediation of it. I think Australians should consider asbestos like we do snakes and poisonous spiders. If I see a spider with a red mark on its back, I know not to touch it. Far more people die from asbestos exposure each year than they do from our infamous dangerous creatures. So the personal cost. Prior to 2010, although working in the building and construction industry, I knew very little about the risks of asbestos and had never heard of mesothelioma. Mum and Dad were only 3 years into their idyllic retirement on the banks of the Huon in Tassie when Dad was diagnosed and given 6 to 9 months to live. Defying medical odds, Dad actually survived 7 years, and during that time was challenged to write his memoir, Reflections Through Reality, which became a catalyst for establishing a foundation by the same name. Dad was passionate about supporting fellow sufferers and providing connections for what can be a very lonely cancer. Dad brought hope to so many, and this is something that I feel very privileged to bring to people, particularly in their darkest times. Over the years, I've got to know so many beautiful people. Some of them on the slides. I just thought I'd put a couple of slides up just to show you. On the top left corner there, Liz is the lady in the top left corner is Liz. She's actually our support network coordinator. Her husband next to her, Colin, passed away 18 months ago from non-occupational exposure at the age of 43. Peter Rafferty in the top right corner. Hopefully your slides are around the right way. Peter died at 45, leaving 4 young sons. That's my crew in the bottom left corner. Rod at the bottom there, his mum died of mesothelioma, and he's very unwell with it now, both from DIY exposure. Bernie in the middle there, that was actually the day he was diagnosed with his granddaughter. She was about 3 when Bernie passed away. Norma up the top there, her exposure was sweeping up after some people had done, some tradies had come and done some work in their home. She passed away a couple of years ago as well. Even these little guys, the little guy in the red top there, his dad passed away at a very young age as well. So I guess I'm just putting those up to point out that asbestos disease, in my experience, is not exclusive to your occupation, to your age, your sex, your length, or your amount of exposure. And it's not personal until it's personal. And by then it's too late. So yeah, Reflections is a not-for-profit and receives no government funding. It's through the support of industry and the community that we do what we do, and we very much appreciate the support and the partnership that we have with Greencap. We welcome the opportunity to develop any other industry relationships as well, so that we can help spread the message to your networks. You may just wish to donate personally. Every dollar counts, and donations over $2 are tax deductible. I encourage you to contact me directly if you'd like to know more about what we do, or if we can help you in some way. If you or someone you know is affected by an asbestos disease, my heart goes out to you and them, and we're more than happy to connect you in and help you in any way we can. Asbestos Awareness Week is just around the corner, so the 22nd to the 28th of November. Just going to jump ahead. Have I got a slide there? If you want to just quickly scan those barcodes, one of them will take you to the website, one of them will take you to our socials. Can I encourage you to connect in? Both Greencap and Reflections will be sharing some really good content over that week. Like I said right early on, the more we can share with our communities the ongoing risk, the more relevant, the more high profile that we keep asbestos on the table, the more impact we're going to have in helping other people not succumb to an asbestos disease. I guess referring back to one of the earlier statistics at the beginning, and as I guess we all know, a statistic is just a number until it's personal. 4,000 deaths per year equates to 20,000 Australians in the last 5 years alone who would likely still be alive, including my dad, if we hadn't used asbestos. But we can't change the past. I do believe, though, that by working together, we can reduce the impact of asbestos on future generations.